Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. A lot of people have asked me to comment on the apparent attack at the Morice River drill site operated by Coastal GasLink. Now, if you're not familiar with what's going on here, I'll just quote a little bit from the BC RCMP press release, and it notes, on Thursday, February 17th, 2022, shortly after midnight, Houston RCMP, Houston is also a town in British Columbia, so this is still in Canada, was called to the Martin Forest Service Road after Coastal GasLink security reported acts of violence at their worksite. It was reported approximately 20 people, some armed with axes, were attacking security guards and smashing their vehicle windows. It was initially reported that some CGL employees were trapped, but all had managed to safely leave the area. Upon police attendance at the 41-kilometer mark, the roadway had been blocked with downed trees, tar-covered stumps, wire, boards with spikes in them, and fires had been lit throughout the debris. As police worked their way through the debris and traps, several people threw smoke bombs and fired lit sticks at the police, injuring one officer. So let's have a look at some of the pictures that the BCRCMP has posted. You can see there's a fire on the roadway here, further fire, and now we can see some of the damage. Vehicles flipped over. Now, people have said, how could 20 people do this? Well, I'm guessing that because there's all this heavy equipment on site, somebody probably got in, some of the heavy equipment and pushed things around. I say, probably, I don't know, but that's my guess looking at some of the damage here, especially when you see stuff like this where, that looks like it's been ripped apart. I'm guessing that was probably with an excavator or something like that. Again, just kind of guessing here. But you see buildings ripped open and so forth. The BC RCMP notes, they say, this was a very troubling escalation in violent criminal activity that could have resulted in serious injury or death. This was a calculated and organized violent attack that left its victims shaken and a multi-million-dollar path of destruction. And so, yeah, Coastal GasLink actually goes a little further in terms of providing details of what they're saying happened. And again, these are allegations at this stage. I don't, nobody has been convicted of this. There have been no findings of fact by a court. But they say that an attempt was made to set a vehicle on fire while workers were inside. They say that people wielded axes, swinging them at vehicles and through a truck's window. They say flare guns were fired at workers, and that they used grinders to cut locks and then proceeded to damage a whole lot of property, including cutting hydraulic and fuel lines of vehicles and creating environmental damage by that means, and by cutting down trees and so forth. So this, the allegations on this are real serious, especially because I think Coastal GasLink's position is that this is, some form of to stop them from drilling, and that this is intended to achieve, some essentially political ends. So, lots of people have had various questions about this, and one of the big questions people have been asking is, does this mean that this is something that they could use the new Emergencies Act powers, which are in effect, against? Is this something that they could could they target these people under these powers? So let's have a little look at that, and I'm just going to jump over to these the Gazetted Regulations here. So one of the first definitions we're going to want to look at is critical infrastructure. So critical infrastructure means the following places, including any land on which they're located. So the first is airports, aerodromes, heliports, harbors, ports, piers, lighthouses, railway stations, railways, bus stations, bus depots. Basically, this is transit kind of stuff, things that we use to move stuff around. Doesn't appear to qualify here. B, infrastructure for the supply of utilities such as water, gas, sanitation, and telecommunications. Ding, we have a winner. This is a gas facility. So it appears that what we're talking about here would qualify as critical infrastructure under the Emergencies Act regulations here. And the next thing we want to look at here is a prohibition on public assembly. So that is right here. So a person must not participate in a public assembly that may reasonably be expected to lead to a breach of the peace. And I think we can reasonably say that this one was reasonably expected to lead to a breach of the peace, because it did. When you look at the when you look at the damage there, you look at the allegations, that qualifies. So by the serious disruption of the movement of persons or goods, or the serious interference with trade, the interference with the functioning of critical infrastructure, again, ding, or the support of the threat or use of acts of serious violence against persons or property. We can check that box here as well. Per the allegations, that would be made out. So it looks like this is within the realm of the whole Emergencies Act ambit. Now, so that means that they could theoretically use these powers against those the people involved when they're identified. Right now, they don't know who did it. Now, ultimately, the next question we have to ask is, should they do that? And I'm going to say not just no, but no, and I really hate seeing people argue for this. Notwithstanding the fact that the Emergencies Act declaration gives them that power, we shouldn't do it. In fact, the Emergencies Act should not have been invoked with respect to the Ottawa protests. And the problem that we get into when we get into this back and forth of, well, why not use it here and why not use it here, is that you keep ratcheting down the threshold for what it gets used on. And eventually you end up with an Emergencies Act declaration because some MP ordered a pizza and it's a little late. I don't want to see that. I don't think that it's necessary to use these powers to investigate this, and I don't think it was necessary to invoke the Emergencies Act for Ottawa. I mean, the arrests that they're doing right now in Ottawa, they could have done without the Emergencies Act. There was no need for that. The only thing the Emergencies Act is allowing them to do that they couldn't have done before is the stuff that is messed up in terms of compelling tow truck drivers to work, whether they want to or not, with the threat of jail, and also freezing bank accounts without any due process. You know, the things where we have completely undermined the basis in terms of a free society with things like you have a right to challenge these things in court. Those things greatly concern me, and I don't want to see them expanded, even against people who it's been alleged are, you know, swinging axes at people and vehicles and firing flare guns. This is not something where we need these extraordinary powers because there's so many ordinary powers that could cover it. You know, in terms of this, we have plenty of things in the toolbox that we can use. First, with respect to the damage, they could lay charges of mischief. Mischief is a very broad charge, but it certainly includes damage to fences, it includes damage to the vehicles, and they can lay charges of mischief under 5,000 for minor damage, you know, grinding off a lock, and mischief over 5,000 for more serious damage, where you're talking about, you know, here's a vehicle that's been ripped open with an excavator or tipped over, that kind of thing. So that's an available charge. In terms of the allegations of firing a flare gun at people, well, you can charge assault with a weapon, you can charge pointing a firearm, you can charge discharging a firearm, because the flare gun is almost certainly a firearm in Canadian law. And I could do a whole video on flare guns some other time, but, you know, that's an available set of charges. With respect to the axes, again, assault with a weapon, to wit axe. And there's also charges available of arson and arson endangering life. There's a whole lot of stuff on the table in terms of how the police could proceed to deal with that. And I don't like seeing people saying, oh, hey, why don't they just use it here too now? This is exactly what I want to avoid, is this situation where we keep calling for more and more use of these powers, and eventually it just becomes the ordinary and expected thing. And pretty quickly we are looking at a situation where a lot of the rights provisions that we absolutely expect and rely on as Canadians will have been eroded to an unacceptable degree. This is part of why the Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the BC Civil Liberties Association are opposing this, opposing the Emergencies Act declaration. And I agree with them. And, you know, if I'm saying that imposing the Emergencies Act declaration is wrong, it's wrong no matter who you want to use it against. You know, it's yeah, there are circumstances where it might be called for, but we're not there yet. Those circumstances would be things like World War III. Yeah, so I know a fair number of people are going to be annoyed at this because lots of people were saying, hey, doesn't this open the door to going after those people? And they really dislike those people. But sorry, I mean, I don't see it as being necessary here or desirable. And I mean, they don't even need to declare that this act is now within the, within sort of a public order emergency. They've already got the Emergencies Act declaration. They have those powers right now, but I very much don't want to see the government using them in this circumstance. I don't want to see them using them at all. Yeah, I'm hopeful that the Canadian Civil Liberties Association is successful and can unwind this. And, yeah. Anyway, that's, I guess, my comments on this one. Let me know if you have any comments below, but to me, if you're gonna take a stand on principle on something, that principle has to apply, more broadly than just, the principles you have for somebody you like needs to be the same principles you have for people you don't like. And I see lots of people out there who might have more favoritism to one side or the other in this, of these two groups, and saying, oh, well, we should use whatever. No, that's not, you have to have principles based on, the actual legal system here. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope that this has armed you with knowledge. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level: Jonathan Wheeler, Canada's National Firearms Association; Kyle Martin, CCFR and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association; at the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Marc-Olivier Damour; and at the $20 level, Peter Hilger, Mark Whittington, Jane Babe and Luxor, Haywire, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Bruno R., Andrew Elsich, and Aaron Delso. Thank you as well to all of the $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge, and see you next time.